WOVU LP Cleveland. Great dawning, grand rising, Cleveland, Ohio. Vince Robinson here with another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. Today I have a special guest, and I always say I have a special guest, but today I have a special guest. She is actually one of my favorite people in the entire world. I've known her since she was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I've seen her blossom into this beautiful actress, thespian, activist. She's doing so many different things, and we want to bring you up to date on what she's doing these days and what her future looks like. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring to our telecast and our radio broadcast, Miss Khemi Adé. How you doing, Khemi?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm kind of hot in my turtleneck, but that's okay.
All right. Well, you're looking beautiful in the turtleneck, and I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And with all transparency, this is an interview that I have wanted to do for a long time. A couple of years ago, you graduated from Baldwin Wallace University.
The other it's okay.
Yeah, BW. Out there in Berea, and you were a student in their theater program, and you did some great things there while you were at Baldwin Wallace. You've been on the stage at Karamu, Cleveland Public Theater. You've just done a whole lot. But I'm taking a departure from what I usually do on the show. My last guest was 79 years and 5 months old.
Wow.
You're in the first quarter. And already you've had such a distinguished career, even though it's been relatively short, comparatively speaking. But I just want to talk to you about your career and talk to you about a few other things that may not necessarily relate to theater, but just to get your perspective as a young person navigating the world that we're in today. But why don't we start with the life of Khemi Adé? And also being transparent, you are the daughter of someone who's very close to me as well, Miss Cassandra Salahuddin. So I'm going to get that on the table and get it out there. So there's no
shout her out already.
Shout her out already. And
right.
She did a great thing when she gave birth to you. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us, first of all, where you started. And I know you lived for a time in New York and other parts of the country, and you eventually ended up at Bedford High School. But tell us about the first 18.
First 18 years of my life. Well, this might be a little TMI, but it's a fun story to give because, it's basically a part of who I am today. So before we get to the actual TMI part, here's the prologue, I guess you would call it. Yeah, prologue. So the prologue is my mom would always tell me the story about how when I was in her womb and she and my father were there for her, I guess checkup when you're pregnant, the ultrasound. And she said they looked at the ultrasound screen and basically I did this to the camera, like I waved. And so that's basically, the precursor as to who I am, because I'm just, I like to believe that I'm very much otherworldly. And that's not at all in a cocky or arrogant way. I always as a child felt very different. I felt very in tune with things and just very much earthy and just love to be just out into the world. I don't know, like the world was my jungle. The world was my playground. It still is. I still live by that. But that's the precursor. The next thing I would say that adds on to who is Khemi Adé. Basically, I burst into the world. Take it what you will of what I mean by that. At my birth, it was literally a grand entrance. So I think from birth, I was supposed to be performing, entertaining, whatever the case may be, So even when I first stepped into the world, I was like, hey, look, I'm here. I'm here to rock this world. And I'm still here to rock this world. But that's a little bit about me that I love to share. But besides that, yes, I was born in Texas. I was born where I was around other kids that had military parents like I did. My mother was on active duty from time to time, so I had a stay-at-home father, which now looking back, that was pretty taboo. I feel like in today's age, that's actually more common, which is pretty cool. I'm definitely the one that's like a rebel in regards to embracing the unconventional. And my life is definitely very unconventional, just based off of what I just shared anyway. So there you go. But yeah, I loved being there, just loved being around a colorful, um, just a colorful amount of people. Like there were just so many different types of families, and I just really enjoyed being a child. I really enjoyed just playing, and I also used to be homeschooled. So, I also have that background of my parents were my first teachers, and that just carries with me to this day, and I'm very grateful for it. And of course, it came with its hardships, but we all had to start somewhere at any age. Fast forward a bit, we had to, due to unfortunate circumstances with my family, we had to move to New York City. At a point, we were living in Harlem, but then my grandmother was like, my grandmother, as on my father's mother, she was like, I'm not having, my grandchild living in those type of conditions. So thankfully, she took us under her arm. And so we were with her. And then again, due to other unfortunate situations, my father was sent away. So it was really just me and my mom and my brother for a long time since then. My mom was working a lot, and I was still a playful child, but I had a lot of time alone. Not saying it was like good or bad, but it definitely played into my development, and I don't feel too sad about it anymore because it really helped build character. And I feel like if it weren't for those moments, maybe in my acting, I wouldn't really have somewhere to pull from. But yeah, I'm grateful for that time, but it was rough. It was pretty rough. Like New York is, them kids out there, they're mean. Them kids are mean. Oh my God, they are so mean. And but they were so mean, but they were so, again, colorful. All the type of ethnicities I was around, and personalities and backgrounds, and character. There was just so many characters from New York that I still reminisce to this day about, or me and my mom still talk about. So again, very grateful for being out there in such an environment like New York. But it was hard knocks for us. It was hard knocks for me, and it wasn't really until recently that I realized that for years, um, I I was taking on the projection of other children who basically, when I say projections, I mean because of how I looked, because of how I act, and because of like my hair and my texture, they always assume, most of the time assume that I was black and blank, or not black at all. And so I didn't realize until literally 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that it was projection, and I internalized it, and I took it onto my self-esteem, and to a point just being very transparent, just feeling like, dang, like, is being just black not enough? And why is that the case? Oh, because in middle school, that's all I would pretty much hear, like, oh, that's it? Are you sure it's not anything else? And then it would happen in high school. So it's just, you don't really know, you really don't know what's going on until you're in silence, or you're just really sitting there thinking, like, where did that come from? Like that, I know my mind is telling me this, but like something beneath that surface is not all the way there. And that doesn't feel like it was actually me. But coming to that revelation early on isn't like, I'm happy I realized that now rather than like 10,000 years later. I'm able to get a grasp on it and really evaluate it and really heal from that, because that was some trauma. I didn't even know that was trauma until, again, recently. I was like, oh wow, that made sense why my self-esteem was like this, or why I felt the way like this, and my confidence was always feeling rocky. Like, I get it now. But besides that, we moved from New York to go to Bedford High School, which is also the high school that Halle Berry went to at some point many years ago. But yeah, that's actually when I feel like that's when I solidified for real that, yeah, I really want to do performing. I want to act. And the specific moment was when it was my freshman year in high school, and we were doing Grease. And I was like, okay, well, let me, try it out. Why not? I've always been into the arts. I love the arts. I've been born and bred into the arts by both artistic parents. So it just came naturally to me. But I remember being on stage maybe the first night that we performed, and I was playing Miss Lynch. And it's funny because I was the youngest in the cast playing the oldest character, the irony. And I remember just looking out into the crowd, and I just felt this rush of something that I felt maybe before a little bit, but now it just felt like it grew. And I was like, I want more of that. Whatever that is, I want that. And this world, whatever this is for me. Like, I got to take it. And to be even more transparent, because I'm really about authenticity and just, keeping it real. To keep it real, like at 14, 15, I was like, this is another way for me to get attention. So at that time, I was like, great, like I could use the stage. It's like, everybody, look at me. Again, being transparent, this was coming from self-esteem issues, which I didn't know till a little later. But besides that, I still enjoyed the craft. And then a little bit before then in middle school, that's when I actually acted, that sounds weird, but whatever. That's when I acted for the very first time. And I was singing a few bars of the first bar to I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, and just feeling that spotlight energy that, which would be the precursor for the Grease thing. And then from there, I was like, this is it. That's what I'm going to be doing.
That's really interesting, because you talk about that early moment in your life, and then you connected at a later moment in life. And then you had that moment where you say, hey, this is for me. The light bulb goes on. And then in a few months, maybe a year or so, I don't know exactly what the timing was, you find yourself cast as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I actually have a little story. It's like a more spiritual story.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you tell that story when we come back from our first break, and I can't wait to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. I have a guest this morning who I have described as a special guest. She is Khemi Adé. She's doing great things in her field and other things as well, and we're going to clue you in as to what there are when we come back. This is 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio. Back in a moment.
Have you downloaded our app yet? Yes, our app for Androids and iPhones. All you gotta do is go to your app store and download WOVU 95.9 FM, and you can listen to us anywhere.
You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. I'm Vince Robinson. My guest is Khemi Adé. She is an actress, and we are talking to her about her life. When we took this break, we were talking about her role in The Wizard of Oz at Bedford High School. I am privileged to have photographs and video of that performance. She hasn't seen it for a while. Perhaps sometime we can reconnect and she can take a look back at her life. But it was a great performance. I think I saw it maybe once or twice, and you knocked it out the park. But before we took the break, you were talking about that moment when you realized that this was for you. So tell us what happened after that moment and how your career as an actress progressed from that point.
So a little bit about the story before I get into that. The story I wanted to share was, I don't even know what to call it, but something is for you and it keeps showing up in various forms throughout different periods of your life. And for me, that was The Wizard of Oz. So the first time I had contact with Wizard of Oz was actually when I was back in New York with the mean-ass kids. And with the mean kids. And I remember I had a drama teacher, Miss Smith, I think, or Mrs. Smith, either way, Smith nonetheless. And she was casting for The Wizard of Oz. And I think I was in 4th or 5th grade. And I was like, oh, let me try to be Glinda the Good Witch, because I wanted to be the good character. I never cared to, be the Wicked Witch and whatnot. But right now, if you ask me that question, I would love to play a villain. That's besides the point. But anyway, I remember us almost doing it. We almost did the play. We were in rehearsal and whatnot, but we never got to do it because she slid and hurt her back on some ice, and she was just MIA for the rest of the semester. And that was like, pretty hurtful. It was like, dang, like I really wanted to, be going to the good witch. But then some more years later, maybe not that many years later, but my mom, she bought me a journal. And that was one of the things that she stayed doing when she was parenting me at a young age, which I really love, was giving me journals. And I didn't understand at the time like what the importance was, but I was using them journals. I didn't let them go to waste. And one of the journals that I had, or maybe one of the very first journals that she gave me, right in the beginning of middle school, was The Wizard of Oz. It was a Wizard of Oz themed journal, and it was actually a black book, and it had the red ruby slippers on the front. And I journaled all throughout that book. I still have that book. I still read it every few years just to see where I was, and but that's a whole other story for another interview some other day. But moving forward, fast forward so many years later, like 5 or whatever, if my math is right. Senior year, we do The Wizard of Oz. And the thing is, again, this is not a cocky comment, but I remember we were to do it, and they were doing casting calls, and just like, I guess my best friend was trying to tell me, like, there's no one else that's really going to be able to do the role for real. So, just kind of be prepared that it's going to be you. And I was like, yeah, whatever, being modest as I was at the time, but I still put in the work, like, but I was very serious about my craft even at that time. And I feel like in high school, that's kind of what I was known for, besides being cute in their eyes, like, oh, she's nice looking, but I was on that stage. Y'all was going to see me on that stage. So I feel like when The Wizard of Oz happened and then I got the part, I feel like not a lot of people were surprised. But I will say I was surprised about my performance, because this was my first time leading a cast and being on stage for 90% of the time. I was like, whoa, oh my God, this is a lot. But I did it, and I had so much help, and I did all that I could to really get into character, but also still bring pieces of Khemi into it. I knew I needed to play Dorothy, but I needed to make it my Dorothy, but still make it recognizable to the masses, because it's a cult classic, because it's a cult favorite. And so it was so challenging, because I was being challenged on my esteem level with my singing, with my dancing. I was good on my acting. I was cool on that. But when it came to the musical parts, I was just like really hard on myself, and just being too hard on myself. And I was so young, I was so young at that time. But looking back, that was one of the best times of my life. One of the most best times in my life, because I really got the chance to show myself what I could do and more. It was kind of like a preview. Even if I wasn't going to continue to do musicals, it's just the fact that I could even do this to this capacity. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved the experience. I loved being able to be a part of something so big that everybody knows. And so it definitely did add some pressure, but I didn't break. So I'm proud of myself for that. But yeah, since then I was like, I have to go to school for this. Like, I'm as insecure as I was. That's the irony. As insecure as I was about myself as a person during that time, and even with my craft, I still had a part of me, a big part of me, that was like, you still got to go for this though. Regardless of how I feel, I still need to follow through and commit with whatever this is. I need to be on stage. I need to pursue in the creative field. I have to, or it's a disservice or a dishonor if I don't.
So this is kind of a side note. I've learned a bit about the Wizard of Oz in my 64 years on Earth. There was really deep symbolism in that movie, in that story. At any point, have you become aware of the deeper meaning of the Wizard of Oz?
To be very honest, I don't think at that time when I was doing it, I don't think so. But looking back, um, I feel like the story I just shared with how the Wizard of Oz was always a part of my life up until that moment to be, I guess, a prediction, if you will. I feel like that's where that's when I look back on it, that is where the connection lies. Because in the movie, she's had the power all along, to go home. She's had the power to, change her destiny. And I know it sounds funny, but as a child, being crushed about not doing the Wizard of Oz for the first time when I was in like 5th grade, I could have let that sabotage me and just take over me and been like, oh, I'm not going to do it ever again, or I'm not going to act ever again because of this. But instead, I used it as like, you know what? Let's still go for it. You never know. And then guess what? It happened. Oh yeah, it has a lot of symbolism.
Well, it's really a powerful story too, in that you started journaling at an early age. And one of the ways that you create your destiny is you have a vision of it, or you project it. And the fact that you were engaged in that activity, and then you saw those things manifest in your life, that's a powerful lesson to everyone who is listening to this broadcast right now. So yeah, it's just a beautiful moment. And I also want to point out that it takes a lot to be able to memorize all those lines. It's endless hours of rehearsals. It's all the choreography that goes into that. And you had so much dedication to that. But at the same time, you were in the National Honor Society, and you were doing other significant things in your high school experience, in addition to being the thespian that you were. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you to juggle all that responsibility and also deal with the insecurities that you were dealing with at that time, and then the domestic issues that you were dealing with at that time? And in spite of all of that, you delivered that powerful performance, and you were on the high school football field as one of the players in that game, so to speak, of high school football. So you really had a lot, and it's just such a testament to your intelligence that you were able to do all that you did.
So you just brought back a lot of like, oh, I did do all that. Oh, that's a good question, Khemi. How did you do it, girl? I don't remember. No, I was juggling a lot. I was the president of National Honor Society. My best friend was the vice president. She and I were very much involved throughout the school. Blood drive. What was something like, there was a lot of stuff, and choir and marching band, and yeah, I don't know how I did it. I think it's two things. Again, just being very, very honest. One of the things was, I feel like in high school, when you're brought up as the gifted child, because that's basically what happened to me throughout my school career. I was a gifted child, so I was in honors classes. I was just able to have access to certain things, I guess. And so when you're around that type of environment, there's this pressure sometimes, or motivation, either or. I think I felt both pressure and motivation to do more, excel. That it was both positive, but also it could be negative. Negative because it made me feel at an early age that what I did equated to my worth. And I was already, again, having esteem issues and insecurity issues. So that played into that. So it was just like, oh, I gotta aim high. Like, I gotta do this National Honor Society. I gotta do blood drive. I gotta take, this type of English class and be on track to be that star student. I have to it was a lot of pressure. But when it came to the arts, when it came to marching band, when it came to a cappella and madrigals being the competitive class, the competitive singers. So they would actually go travel either in state or out of state to go compete. Whether it was that and musicals, the plays that we were doing, I just had a level of commitment despite the insecurities and despite, that push. I just had the desire to honestly juggle it because I loved it so much. And that's where I felt so in my element and felt so free and felt so like in flow. It was like you couldn't tell me anything, despite how insecure I was.
Right. Well, I'm sure that it helped that you had two parents who were high achievers, who were extremely talented and knowledgeable. The fact that you had that homeschooling experience, it probably gave you a head start. So when you got to New York and when you got to Bedford and you are engaged in that educational experience, you had something under your belt that enabled you to do as well as you did. So we're going to talk a bit more about your high school experience, but we're also going to dive into the collegiate experience because it was a complicated situation. And I know that you have a bit of a sour taste in your mouth about some of the things that happened, but it's the reality of being in that academic setting and dealing with racism that exists and pervades our society. So we'll deep dive into that rabbit hole when we come back. You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. I'm Vince Robinson. My guest is actress Khemi Adé. We'll be right back on this Burton Bell Carr community radio station after these messages.
While you want to listen to WOVU 95.9 FM, here's the reason why. We play all independent music from Cleveland artists. Yes, we do each and every night. We support the community. We support the Cleveland local artists. This is what we do. And we got the hottest playlists from gospel, from R&B, from rap, the hip hop, and also we have jazz right here, WOVU 95.9 FM. Don't forget to download our app right now, WOVU. This is the Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Hi, this is Wanda Harris from Warrensville Heights, Ohio, and you're listening to the best radio station in Cleveland, WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson. My guest this morning is my very, 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 very special guest, Khemi Adé, actress. We've been talking about her thespian career at Bedford High School, and she was the center of attention in The Wizard of Oz, and it was something that she had wanted to do, and it came together for her. She had the opportunity to do that role, and it cast her to bigger stages, Karamu, for instance, and Baldwin. I don't know why I want to call it.
I know so many people. Yeah, but if maybe saying balding walrus sometimes work. I don't know, but a lot of people get it confused. Bowling green, everything else, everything else but balding. I can't even say it now. Balding. See, yes. You messed me up.
B-dub. There you go. There you go. University used to be a college, now it's a university, and you spent some time there. So let's talk about your transition from high school to college, because high school is kind of a microcosm, and then you have the macrocosm of a university and a bigger student population and, a whole lot of things that you probably didn't experience in high school. What was it like for you to make that transition and to continue developing the craft of acting?
Oh, well, I'll start out by saying my mother has always told me before I went off to college, Khemi, the world is literally just a bigger high school. That is it. It literally does not change that much. You still have the people that are like bullies. You still have people that are like popular or whatever. And just even beyond that, it's still giving high school vibes and how people act and whatnot. So I really kept that in mind. And we were actually just talking about this the other day. I was like, Mommy, I'm just realizing wow, even in my almost mid-20s now, life really is just a big old high school still. Wow. I thought, it changed. Nope. So to go back to your question, how was the transition for me? It was exciting. I had the privilege to, I had the privilege to go somewhere that was, for one, my first choice, that I was very excited about. And it was also a place where my best friend and I applied to the same place and we both got in. So there you go. And we were able to be roommates. And then from there, I was able to meet another amazing best friend of mine that, now we're all the three musketeers to this day. So I'm happy that I went to BW because I met amazing people from there, like my additional best friend now. And just, it was a tough time. And I needed those hard knocks, though. I needed those hard knocks. And as excited as I was, I will say I was feeling disappointment. I was feeling disappointment because I think it was with myself too. It wasn't just with the institute. It was definitely me too, dealing with, like, when it came to auditions, past a certain point, I felt like I just wasn't disciplining myself to, like, put myself in the best predicament where I wasn't feeling like I was rushing to the audition or rushing to, I don't know, just to audition. Like, I would literally wait last minute to memorize my monologues and go to the audition and then get upset when I didn't get cast. So I feel like it was split. It was split between the university and myself with the disappointment. Now with the university, I don't know. It feels like it's just I feel like a lot of Black actors, a lot of Black thespians that come from PWIs, mainly white institutions like the one I went to, I feel like we sing in the same song. Like, where's the inclusivity and the diversity of the seasons when it comes to the performance seasons, when it comes to the catalog, So that's what disappointed me for sure. I mean, thankfully, I will say this: in my freshman year, I did snag a spot. It was an understudy role, but I did get the opportunity to work with a Black woman director, and it was for Intimate Apparel. And actually, that was a role that took me out of my comfort zone because I was playing a prostitute. It was fun, but it was definitely taking me out of my comfort zone. I was like, oh wow, like this is the first role I get when I'm in college. All right, I'm gonna remember that.
Well, Khemi, if I could interrupt, I saw that performance, and it was really amazing to me to see how you pulled that off, knowing what your experience level was that time in terms of the character that you were playing. And it was like, wow, she knows it so well, but it's so far from who she actually is. Mm-hmm. And it's really a testament to your ability to act, because that's what it was. You were acting. You weren't being you. You were being whoever you put in the spirit or the energy of that character.
Yes, I agree. And to be honest, it was a fun role. It was fun. It was a fun experience and bonding with the cast at that time. And again, being directed by a Black woman, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm very fortunate because I never got to see it again in those other, years that I was there, to my knowledge. So I got it right when I stepped in. And I don't know, it just, something about sophomore year was just depressing. And I think that's just a sophomore year thing, because in high school, I had a very depressing sophomore year in high school. And so here we are again, another depressive, sophomore year, but in college. So even times 20, I was going through like relationship stuff with people, internal stuff, of course, same stuff. But now I was also dealing with something with my craft, which I feel like maybe was, now that I think about it, maybe a first for me, in regards to it being at an academic institute. I didn't deal with things like that in high school. It was just really easy, but this was very hard. I know it sounds cliche, but it was so hard. But like, something about sophomore year just started this discouragement for me. Or just further, stabbed me so deep where there was already a wound. It was just very, I don't know, that was just not a good year. being in it, but I do remember there was this show that I did, and I think it was sophomore year, like spring, and it was Vagina Monologues. And I don't remember the first character or first monologue I did, but the second monologue that I did was like the woman who loves vaginas or something like that. And oh my God, that was another role that took me so out of my comfort zone. But the irony is that even though I got so much accolades about doing so well and just having the audience rolling and whatnot and in awe, I remember seeing my family and busting into tears, and it wasn't tears of joy. It was tears of sadness. I was like, I don't know why this doesn't feel fulfilling. Something doesn't feel right. Why don't I feel like I didn't do a good, why do I feel like I didn't do a good job or didn't do enough? Remember I said earlier, worth brought back up again. But the crazy thing now is, when I look back at my short but long, thorough career, I go back to that moment because I think in 2018, so some years later, when I started to really get knee deep into working on myself, I was like, Khemi, that performance was amazing. What was I not seeing? But the thing is like when you don't see yourself as enough, you won't even see your work as enough. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If you don't think it's enough, it's not enough. And that was just the reality. And I feel like if I could label what sophomore year felt like and onward, not enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say that I was depressed, but I really hate that I missed that performance because I had a gig that night and I couldn't make it. Somehow, if through the magic of videotape, if we could just roll that back and I could see it. But I'm sure you did knock it out the park. I know that you also were in another performance, I think, in one of the last years you were there, because I photographed that one as well. And I think it was some type of a project where there were students that were directing. Is that what happened?
I'm trying to think which one, because I done like 2-3 student directed projects there, 2, 3, or 4. So I don't.
I just remembered that it was a wide open room and it had a black floor.
Was my hair in pigtails?
I don't think it was in pigtails. I have the photographs, but it was such a long time ago. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago. When you get long in the tooth, you don't remember those things. But yeah. I remember the occasion. It was like we were sitting on bleachers or something. It was that building where they had theatrical performances, but it was just a different kind of space. It may have been the same space that Intimate Apparel was in.
Okay, so the Black Box Theater.
Yes.
The Black Box. So I don't know what student. I don't think I ever did a student directed project in there.
Okay.
But maybe what you're talking about is either 4 Plays for Dancers, which was my very first overstudy role, or either it was, you said, a black floor, or either it was the last show I did right before not right before, but the semester before the pandemic hit. It was the last days of Judas Iscariot.
Okay.
That wasn't student either. So
yeah, it wasn't that, because I would have remembered that. But nonetheless, it was just another feather in your cap. We're going to move forward and deal with your experience at Karamu and Cleveland Public Theater when we come back. Again, 2 fantastic performances. I mean, I feel like a father to you, Khemi. And if I was a true biological father, I would have just been beside myself. And I'm beside myself anyway. So
stand in it.
Yeah,
stand beside yourself and stand in it.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to come back to your performance at Karamu and Cleveland Public Theater, the most recent performances, when we come back from break. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Khemi Adé, actress and beautiful person. We will be right back after this.
this is Ken Hawkins.
Hi, this is Pinky.
This is TC Lewis.
This is Shantae Travers.
This is Reggie Heyman.
This is Bill Silverby Richards. If you're not listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, you're not in the mix. I'm Silverby. Crank it up.
24 hours of golden.
Welcome back to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson with Khemi Adé. We just talked about her experience at Baldwin Wallace University.
You got it now. Look at you. Bravo.
And we're going to move forward to some performances that she did on even bigger stages. One is Karamu. It is the oldest Black theatrical institution in the entire country. And she's been on that stage more than once. Khemi, tell us about your experience at Karamu. Tell us the name of the play and what your role was in it and what the experience was like.
So I always got a story for something. So the prologue to that story is, again, going through self-esteem issues and whatnot, and craft issues. Craft is in like acting and whatnot. And I just remember Karamu sending out a casting call, and their next season was going to include, I think, 1 or 2 straight plays and 1 musical. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, you know what, I'm pretty scared, but I'm going to go for it, and I'm just going to audition for experience. Meaning, I'm just going to show myself, I'm going to bring my work, so crush the audition, and then leave. And, let them know, like, I just came here for experience. I'm not able to participate, out of school, that kind of stuff. Give that kind of spiel. But what's important is to at least show your face, because that's kind of how you get other gigs, is when you go to auditions, regardless if you are technically able to do it or not. And that's kind of the secret I'm just spilling right now, proudly. So take what you will from that. So I remember I did the audition. I did really well. I was very proud of myself. And I was just auditioning for the straight play or straight plays. And that was it. I told myself, I'm not auditioning for that musical. I don't feel confident in it. But I do feel confident in just auditioning for the straight plays, because the straight plays only required 2 monologues. The musical required you to sing, per usual, sing and a monologue or something like that. Maybe dance. I don't know. And I was like, I think I did really well. And just, kept it at that. Fast forward a bit, I get contacted by the casting director on like a group email, I guess CC to me with other people. And it was like, oh, Aida auditions. Aida is the musical, by the way. Surprise, surprise. And it's saying, Aida, the casting call, for callbacks. And I was like in my dorm with my best friend at the time. She's still my best friend when I say that. Anyway, with my best friend / roommate at the time. That's what I meant to say. And I was like, why am I seeing this? Like, I didn't audition for that. I just auditioned for the straight plays. I did not audition for a musical. And I remember this distinct moment where right before I disregarded it, I felt my intuition speak clearly. I heard a voice speak clearly and say, do it, submit, audition, go for it. You never know, just go for it. And I was like, I don't know, I can't shake this. So let me actually attend this callback. And you had to prepare with songs and timing of my life, because during this time that I heard back from Karamu, with the first round of callbacks for Aida, the musical, I was taking a singing for actors course. I was like, and I knew in that moment when I saw that email and when I had that gut feeling, I was like, that's perfect timing, because I already have music prepared to sing for them. And this was the other kicker. That callback, the email that I got, they said the callbacks were like tomorrow or the next day. I just so happened to be prepared without even knowing I was prepared. So I was like, this has to be set in stone. I'm just going to go for it. I know I'm scared as all get out, but something about this, I need to go for it. Long story short, turned out to be an amazing experience. I got casted as a chorus member and as an exotic dancer for one of the scenes. That was super fun to do. And I just had an amazing professional theater, my very first professional theater experience, and paid. that too. So I was like, wow, I can actually say I'm a professional because I got paid. So it was like a lot of beginnings going on for me, a lot of new beginnings going on for me. And I met so many amazing people that I still see on social media till this day. And I'm just like, wow, I worked with that person. They were like so great. Or I'll see them in productions now and I'm like, here from Aida. There's actually one actress, the one that played Aida. I keep seeing her, but we're pretty cool. So this is funny whenever I see her in something that I'm in. I'm like, here we are again, huh? For the third time. So it was just an amazing experience because I was going to a PWI, Karamu, again, mainly being predominantly Black and of color, but mainly Black. This was my first time really being in a cast that was 99 with 1% because there was one white person. She was cool too, though, so hey, she was cool. But all except one actor was Black. And I was like, whoa. And it was a big ensemble too. It wasn't no small ensemble. And it was just, it blew my mind. It really showed me, like, you gotta listen. Like when life calls, when your gut calls, when spirit calls on a spiritual level, you gotta pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Thankfully I did, because it's not only on my resume, but it's something I still to this day, I'm so happy to have had happen for me in the timing that it did. So that was amazing. Fast forward a bit to Cleveland Public Theater. This is another story. So I don't know where I was in school, as in like, I don't know what year I was in. I don't know. But it was again that I'm going to audition for experience. I'm just not going to be able to commit. And so I said, oh, Panther Woman, that sounds pretty cool. And that's directed and written by India Burton. Shout out to her. Love her to death. My other mother. And I auditioned for her. I auditioned with an original piece, which that was actually my very first time doing. Usually auditions, they're like, oh, pull a monologue from somewhere. But I was like, can I just, write my own poem, my own monologue? And she was like, sure. And I was like, yes, I got this in the bag. I still had self-esteem issues, by the way. Don't get fooled. I still had self-esteem issues. And so I went to the audition. I killed it. And she was like, oh, my God. And she was like, are you sure you can't do it this year? I was like, I can't. I'm in school, girl. I'm in school. I'm in school. And she was like, oh, my God. Okay. And so years later, last year, 2021, she actually reached out to me. And she said, hey, I'm doing Panther Women for its last cycle as a workshop. And I was wondering if you could audition. And I was like, oh, well, look at that. I just so happen to be free and out of school. I can actually do it this time around. And I was just like, I'll definitely do it. I wasn't expecting too much out of it, but I was like, let me just, go for it. Crush that audition too. Got in it. Oh my God. I love the experience of, again, working with a cast of Black people, but this time I was working in a cast of Black women. That was just, I can't even describe the feeling. Like, it was just an overwhelming sense of gratitude, an overwhelming sense of richness. Like, oh my God, just such amazing, talented, gifted women. And remember that girl I told you about that I would not keep seeing, but I would see her from Aida since then. Well, we're working together again. And I was like, hey girl, well, look at that. Small world, Cleveland is small. So it was great to even work with her again, but in a different capacity, because now it wasn't a musical. It had music in it, but it was like a choreo poem with music. So it was a totally different ball game for me, but it was so natural for me. But one of the biggest takeaways that I took from that experience, I was at a point in my life, because we did this performance, we did Panther Women in last summer. That was the very first time that I can even recollect ever where I was in a position where in my self-esteem, I was sound and secure. I was actually confident in who I was. I was confident in my craft. I was taking it seriously without beating up on myself too much, at least, as opposed to like in college. And I was really enjoying it. And I don't know, it was just very liberating. it itself, but also the process I was actually able to enjoy. Because at a point, I was going through a really big depression before the pandemic hit. And it was actually during the last days of Judas Iscariot, which was the very last show I ever did at BW before graduating. And I remember, like, I just didn't want to act anymore. I was just questioning so much about myself. And I was just in a very dark place, a very deep-rooted rut. And so to come from that to years later being called to do Panther Women as CPT at Cleveland Public Theater and feeling the way that I felt with the confidence and the empowerment, I was like, this is the way that I want to move in my life from now on. I'm not perfect, but I deserve that. I deserve to put myself in such a confidence, and it exudes such a confidence and exudes such a reassurance of myself that I'm actually able to enjoy the process and not wait and not be so impatient for it to be over. Because that's when I knew something was also wrong with me, when I was doing shows at a point and I was like, I'm ready to wrap up. Like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you got past that doubt that you had about continuing, because if you had embraced it and fallen into that trap, you would not be able to elevate as you are right now. You mentioned the pandemic, and I know that it had a profound influence on your trajectory, because you were rising and then all of a sudden everything came to a screeching halt. We just have just a couple of minutes, but I just want to have you talk about recovering from that and being able to move forward. And again, we just have 2 minutes.
To be very honest, I already had my downfall way before the pandemic. So the pandemic was more of like, she was an add-on to my stress that I already had. And it just was a magnifying glass, a magnifying glass as to what was just bothering me. And I was just at a very low point, and just being in a space where I was living somewhere where I no longer live anymore, thankfully, living in a unfortunate living condition where it was just feeling very toxic for me. And I just wasn't feeling free. I was feeling caged. And I was also just not in the best or healthiest relationship on top of that. And it was so many factors in school and wondering, do I need to continue this craft? Do I need to continue this career? I don't know, but I think it was about maybe early 2021, and really after my breakup, to be honest, that's when I started to feel free. I started to question every single thing. I started to do deep diving into, what do I actually want? Not what other people are projecting onto me. What do I want? And that's really what helped me pull me out of it, and even just deepening my spiritual roots. I'm not religious by any means. I'm very much spiritual. So I take whatever I feel applies for me from different areas, and just really grounding myself in my spirituality helped me so much. And having a community of a close-knit, immediate family for sure, and having, my 2 best friends by my side to this day, it's been so helpful. That's really what's been getting me through, and just my undying spirit to not quit on myself. I feel like it's okay to quit some things in life. I know that's controversial. I don't care. But to not quit on me, that's another level of, I'm not doing that ever. Quitting on me is just clocking out for good, and I'm not here for that. I still have yet to experience the endless possibilities that joy has for me in life. I still have more experiences to add on to my joy. I heard that from somewhere the other day, and that is basically how I'm living right now.
Okay, well, I'm certainly pleased to hear that. I'm flashing your social media on the screen for those who watch this, and I will post it to the YouTube post when that comes up. Khemi, it has been an absolute joy and pleasure to have this conversation with you. I wish you nothing but success, prosperity, and abundance in your future, and keep doing what you're doing. You're an old soul in a young body, and you're doing it big. Thanks for joining me on Open Door.
Thank you for having me, and again, follow me on my socials and hit me up. I'm pretty social if you can see that.
All right. And thank you for joining us. This is Vince Robinson with another edition of Open Door. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your absolute best day. Peace.